Robinson of Kensington College, continuing the series on Excel VBA. In particular, we'll look at running code using keys. So far we've been talking about running code using a command button, and we double click on that and write our code in the command button. We'll do something slightly different and run our code from a key combination. Let's say Control Q, that we'll use for running the code. We'll start off by making a sub in here, and for example we'll just print out to the top left of the spreadsheet like we have done before. And if we were to run that, and I could run it from here of course, if I just run it, I'll put my cursor here and then go to the run, and that should do just that and place simple at the top left. Okay, but now how can we run this from a keyboard combination? Well, we could try going through here. We'll go through the developer tab and look at our macros, and you'll see that it is indeed exposed. We can actually see sheet 1 test. Now why is that? And that's because test is public. What do I mean by that? Let's take a look. Well, if I were to put the word public in front of here, that means it will be accessible from other sheets. And in particular, when we take a look at macros, you'll see it listed there. So that makes no difference if we've got public or not. But if we were to put the word private, you would find that it's not visible. And it's not visible. Interesting, isn't it? It doesn't actually appear. So that gives us an opportunity to access our thing. So we can just delete that, and it is public by default. So public means it's available to every other sheet. So let's go back and try a keyboard combination. So we can click on the options here, and then we can put, let me just take a look at that, and all open workbooks, that's fine, all open workbooks. Now, so if we click on the options, then Control Q, we might as well use that keyboard combination, and then click OK and close that box. And now if we were to simply be in that sheet and Control Q, you can see that the code will run. You could put a breakpoint in here to show that that is being run. So let me perhaps try that from another sheet, the Control Q combination, and if we go back, you'll find that it has actually worked. So it'll work for any of the sheets, which is rather useful. But you'll notice that obviously it's because this is written in sheet 1, which is that sheet there, it only places its result in sheet 1. I'll just do that again. So if you're actually in sheet 2 and you make the Control Q and then take a look at sheet 1, and you'll find that that indeed has worked. And as we said, it works from any sheet. And that's because it's implicit that this is qualified by sheet 1, which is the name of the sheet at which it works. So if we tried that, it wouldn't make any difference. I'll just show you. I'm in sheet 2 and go to sheet Control Q, and you'll find that indeed the symbol has been placed in there. So it's implicitly qualified by the current sheet, and so we don't need to put that indeed. And take note, so look, that looks like the sheet name. In fact, there are 2 sheet names. This is what we call the code name, and the way we access the code name is going through the properties of the sheet, and it's this name here, which is the code name, and this is the name that we can talk about this later, but this is the name, the ordinary name as you're used to it. That is to say, the name at the bottom here, but this is the code name which is accessible from here, and we're going to talk about that later, but I'll just change that. I'll change the actual code name, and I'll need to adjust this as well, but I'll leave it out for a moment. And let's just see if that code is still running. I'll run it from sheet 2, Control Q, and there it appears. Okay, but now I would need to qualified by the code name of the sheet. You'll notice this has got nothing to do with the name itself down the bottom down here on the worksheet. This name down here corresponds to this name here, which is the name of the worksheet, but this is the code name here. It makes no odds, so I could run it from here and still you can find that it's here. So at the end of the day, well, we don't need that. So at the end of the day, what we've got here is a public sub in a worksheet, and it's in one particular sheet, and we can run it. It'll run from anywhere in the workbook using Control Q. I'll just do that again, Control Q, and take a look on sheet 1, and the code has appeared. I must say it's more usual to put code like this into a module. Let's just do that. I'll insert a module. A module will be visible from any worksheet. I'll take the code from there, cut it out of there, and place that in my module. So I'll just close that code 1 sheet and paste the code in a module. Strangely enough, that when we run the code, you notice that sheet 1 is active over here. So if I run the code, you'll find it places the text onto the active worksheet. You could just prove that. I'll just run it with sheet 2, the active worksheet, and that will place the text into that current sheet. The advantage of a public sub in a module, we could run that from any sheet. So if we were to put a button onto, and then from that sheet we could run that code, which is the test code. It places the text. So this module is available from any sheet. This is a much more usual way of doing it, actually, to have a public module, especially, and that code will run from any worksheet by the fact that it is public. And as we know, we could not have the word public because it's public by default. So let me just get rid of the command button code and see if we can just run our public code using a keyboard combination. So if we take a look at our macros, and you'll see it's listed because it's a public procedure, but it's not qualified by the sheet name. So we can try a keyboard combination. We'll use our Control Q, and then we could try Control Q, and you'll see that it appears on sheet 1. If I go to sheet 2, Control Q, it'll appear on the active worksheet. And if you want to be specific as to what sheet it will appear, then we can qualify it with the name of the sheet. We could even try sheet 3. And use our Control key. And there you see the text has appeared on sheet 3. So that's it. You see, that's the sheet that it's going to appear with that for that particular range. It's a public module, and indeed a public procedure written in a module which is accessible from any worksheet.